Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Chalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jutha Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajataham Sahagana Raghunathan Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Deve Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirbhishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharine.
Maharaj, all yours.
Hare Krishna, how may I serve you?
Maharaj, we are extremely grateful that we would please. The idea was that you can give the talk, and then after that, any questions, and then there are few aspiring disciples who would like to get your darshan. So that is the plan. But it's entirely your call if you would. But your talk would be the most precious, Maharaj.
I am so grateful, happy, honored, and feeling so blessed to see each and every one of you. If only you could see how wonderful you are appearing within my heart and within my eyes, then you would be most happy. Usually every year I look forward so much to being with you. His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, Her Grace Nirakula Devi, they are so kind that they give me shelter in that little kutir behind their house. It's one of the holiest places in the world, a place where so much beautiful bhajan and prayer takes place, and I feel so cleansed and purified while I'm there in that little kutir. It used to be a garage, and just outside of that is a wonderful little garden with flowers and fruits and tulsi leaves and sacred trees growing. And from there, I'm taken sometimes to Mountain View to be with all of you, Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and other times to San Francisco, to the Bhakti Center there. And devotees from Sacramento oftentimes come and visit. I'm feeling much separation. Sometimes we're so busy in our lives with so many considerations and concerns and pressures and expectations that we don't take the time to really feel how much people are important to us in our lives. Separation is a gift of Krishna to help us to excavate deeper into how great Vaishnavas really do affect our lives and how much they mean to us. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his path, he especially emphasized on this love and separation. There is sambhog and viraha, vipralamba, where we meet with one another, but those meetings, they only last for some time. But the experience of how we share Krishna in those meetings, the experience of how we appreciate one another in the service of Krishna in those meetings, they manifest in feelings of separation from one another. How much I truly appreciate the blessing of being with all of you is being intensely experienced in my heart, since I'm not able to be with you physically. But actually, in that state of consciousness, we are even more closely together within our hearts. When we put Krishna in the center, then we are all connected. There's that beautiful analogy: if we water the root of the tree, then the water extends to every part of the tree. And Krishna tells in Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. That Krishna is the root of all existence. He's the source of all spiritual, all material worlds. Everything, everyone emanates from Krishna. And real wisdom, real knowledge is to engage in his loving service, because that service is all-inclusive. Janmadya Shyayataha. When we serve Krishna, we are watering the tree of all existence. And in Krishna, we are all connected. Many of you are living in Silicon Valley. And I remember once inquiring from our very dear friend Damodar Vilas Prabhu about what is silicon, because I don't know anything about these things. I went to a junior college for one semester and then got my graduation and postgraduate. I got my graduation in a cave in the Himalayan jungles, and my post-graduation in the banks of the river Yamuna under a tree. So I don't know so much about all these technical sciences, but he explained the whole idea of the science of connectivity, of how on these circuit boards, there's various ways, large ways and very, very minute science expressions of how to connect. And the whole idea of yoga is to connect. So in one sense, this world is meant to be like a circuit board where we're all connected. And that connectivity can only come through that personality who is within everyone's heart. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hridaya janachishtati. Krishna is in the heart of every living being. Wherever there's life, there's a jivatma who's a part and parcel of Krishna. Every jivatma is an eternal, beloved child of God, of Krishna. And Krishna, how benevolent and how thorough is his love, that every jivatma is mamaivam so jivaloke, part of Krishna, dear to Krishna. And Krishna personally appears beside every jivatma as the Paramatma in whatever species of life we go. If we're very pious, very, very pious, we may be devatas or demigods in the higher realms, and Krishna's in our heart. Or in this world, we may be in a human life. There's so much conflict between various races, various religions, various nationalities, various castes or social statuses. But in actuality, in every person is Krishna's eternal child, and Krishna is personally seated in the heart of that person as the friend, as the witness, as the guide whenever we turn to him. And among all species of life, Krishna is present. And how Krishna cares about everyone. And this is where we're really connected. To the extent we connect with Krishna within our own hearts, we're connected with everyone, everywhere. And Vaishnav community is based on this principle of honoring and appreciating those who sincerely recognize that Krishna is within their heart. Samahatma sudurlabha, bahunam janmanamante jnanavam papadyate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabha. After so many births and many deaths, and even after so many births of cultivating knowledge, practicing religion, yoga, when one is very fortunate, one understands that Krishna is in my heart. And through devotion, through loving service, we can connect to Krishna. This is the most secret of all secrets. That although Krishna is the closest person to all of us, the closest thing to all of us, neither by cultivation of knowledge, developing skills, developing influence over other beings, through our austerities, through our charities, through none of them can we really approach Krishna personally within us. Bhaktya mama bijanati yavan yashtasmi tatvata. Bhaktyatvanani yashakya aham evam vidurjana. But by bhakti, by devotion, by loving service, we can connect to Krishna. Yeyatamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. As we take shelter of Krishna, as we surrender to Krishna, Krishna reveals himself to us. And putting Krishna in the center of our own personal lives means samsiddhir haritoshanam. That my words, my actions, as far as possible, my thoughts, the aim is to please Krishna. What pleases Krishna? Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati kotopi. What the great acharyas, what the spiritual masters have given us is the way to please Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, the only thing that really pleased him is when we did what was best for ourselves. Because in this world, when we're disconnected from that Paramatma, from Krishna in our heart, it's like we're lost in the woods, and our activities, what we think is beneficial for ourselves, could actually be more and more disconnecting us. In the world today, how people are so disconnected. Many of you are living in America. We call it the United States of America. But this idea of united is not taken very seriously these days. There's so much disunity in politics, in race, among sexes, among religions. There's just so much disunity, and through that disunity, there's envy, there's fear, there's depression, there's anger, there's hatred. And, you know, the idea of America is one nation under God, indivisible, where there's liberty and justice for all. And from a political position, you know, those rights are meant to be protected. But Srila Prabhupada taught us that in truth, we have to actually understand and appreciate how we are all connected, what that unity really is. And that unity has its deepest realization when we experience. It begins with knowledge, and then through practice of that knowledge, through sadhana, then we actually make the connection to Krishna, who is within our own hearts. And by Krishna's grace, Krishna reveals how he's in all people's hearts. And then we live with compassion. Srila Prabhupada spoke so many things in so many ways, but sometimes he condensed his teachings into the most simplified form. In one particular place, Srila Prabhupada speaks emphatically. He said the purpose of the Krishna consciousness feel the sufferings of others. That's all. To actually feel the sufferings for others and to care, to want to make a difference. If we really care for the suffering of others, there has to be a level of love. And Krishna consciousness means to be conscious of Krishna, to actually prema pumartha mahan, to appreciate that the greatest goal of life is to love God, to love Krishna, who has many names, who has appeared in many forms, in many ways, in different times. But that love for Krishna is inherent within us. It's our true potential. But it's been forgotten. And that forgetfulness of who we are and forgetfulness of God's love that is within us and all pervading everywhere, that is the root cause of all disconnections. It's like the connectivity, the circuit is broken. And bhakti is the process, or as Prabhupada said, the science of restoring that original connection. The connection of the soul with the super soul, the connection of the true self with God. And through that, sarva yonishu konteya murteya sambhavantiya, to connect with all living beings. When we connect with the Paramatma within our own heart, we're connected with the Paramatma in every heart. Because although the Paramatma is manifesting so many forms in everyone's heart, he's the same one person. Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. It's inconceivable, it's incredible, and it's simply wonderful. How is this? That as many jivatmas as there are, there's paramatmas seated beside the jivatma. And every one of those paramatmas is the same person. And every jivatma is infinitesimally a part, an eternal loving servant of that person. And that's all that truly exists when we're seeing in the light of knowledge. But in darkness, we can't see it. We can't perceive what's there. Just like in the midst of the dark night, if there's no source of light anywhere, we can't see what's all around us. But when the sun rises, we see everything as it is. When Lord Chaitanya was living in Puri, every day he would go to Siddhabakula, which is the place where Srila Haridas Thakur was residing. Haridas Thakur, as we know, he was born from a family which, by social estimations at that time, he was an untouchable. He was considered born in that place because of massive accumulations of sins in his past lives, and therefore not to be seen, not to be touched, but just to go anywhere near such a person would contaminate you. That's the way people in the caste system consciousness thought of such people. Where Haridas was coming from that background, Um, but he loved Krishna. He had complete attachment to the holy names of Krishna. And because of that, he was truly compassionate. He was willing to give his life in every way to help others. We read in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, when he was living in a place called Benapole. I visited that place some years ago. He was living in the forest in quite a secluded place. And he just had a little hut made of dried leaves. Just the floor was the dirt of the forest. He didn't even go anywhere to get something to eat. If people brought him some simple foods, he would eat that day. If not, he didn't care. He was tasting the sweetness and getting nourished by chanting. At least 300,000 times he was chanting every day. And because of the purity of his heart and his compassion, many people, they saw him as their guru. They saw him as a saint. They had such appreciation. And he was not competing with anyone. He was just giving of himself. Trinadapi sunichena. He was more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant, forgiving than a tree. But there was a very wealthy, very high-level person who was greatly respected. His name was Ramchandra Khan. And Haridas was nothing but a loving well-wisher to him. But Ramchandra Khan was envious. How is it that this low person, he doesn't have the educational background I have, he doesn't have the high birth that I have, he doesn't have any wealth like I have. How is it that people are recognizing and respecting him? It was intolerable. This is the tendency of this disconnection on this what do they call it, a silicon panel of material existence. Is when we're disconnected, we're so much prone toward envy. Because when we're not connected with Krishna, when we're connected with Krishna, we're actually, our joy is being the well-wisher of others. We put others' interest as the center of my life because Krishna is in the center. But in that short circuit, in that disconnection, we put ourselves in the center, and that selfishness, that egoism disconnects us from actually being a true well-wisher from others. And instead of celebrating a person's successes and a person's happiness and a person's blessings, we become envious. Srila Prabhupada, he quotes from the Chaitanya Charitamrita and from the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam that the quality of a Vaishnav, the prominent quality of a devotee, is to be free of envy. So we can inspect our own hearts to see how advanced we really are by actually feeling a sense of celebrating others' good fortune. And we can understand we still have some serious medicine to take in the form of hearing and chanting and associating with devotees and seva service if we're feeling envy. Paradukkha dukhi, to feel joy in others' joy, real joy, and to feel pain in others' pain. That was Haridas. But Ramchandra Khan was the opposite. He could not tolerate. Here is somebody who was his best ever well-wisher, but he hated him because he was getting more affection than people were giving him. So with his God-given intelligence and resources, he used them all to try to destroy Haridas so that he could appear to be greater. He felt the need to destroy this man, to ruin his reputation, and ultimately to imprison him, to kill him. So we know the story how he sent that very, very beautiful lady who happened to be a prostitute to come in the middle of the night all alone to violate the sacred vows of Haridas. And Haridas, he knew it from the very beginning why she was coming. But yet he was so patient and so kind. I will fulfill your desires. Just let me finish my prescribed number of rounds of chanting the holy names every day. And ultimately, just by associating with him, she became a great devotee. Just by her connection with Haridas, because Haridas cared about her. Even though she was such a degraded person in so many ways, Haridas Thakur saw the potential of goodness in her heart and just fanned that. And the only way he could help her was just chanting. And in his chant, he was obviously praying for Krishna to help her. And because of the prayer of Haridas Thakur, the Paramatma in her heart awakened ecstatic love in her, and she became a saint. She became a Paramhamsa. She became one of the most celebrated, enlightened persons. And when that transformation took place, Ramchandra Khan was even more envious, was even more destructive. And Haridas Thakur told her, the only reason I stayed here is just because I felt pain to see your condition, and I wanted to give you real happiness. I wanted to give you Krishna. Such a connection. That's the nature of someone who really has Krishna in the center of their lives. So this same Haridas, wherever he went, he was ridiculed, criticized, blasphemed. He was persecuted. And we read in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, unless he was with devotees, practically everywhere he was going, innocent people were inspired by him, and other people, and it was mostly the people who were in high positions, whether wealth or knowledge or high birth according to the time, or even socially high spiritual positions. They were the people who tried to destroy him. But when he was in Puri, Haridas was so humble. He didn't even feel himself to be fit to go into the temple of Jagannath. He just wanted a place where he could see the chakra on top of the temple and worship that chakra. And Lord Chaitanya understood his heart and personally gave him a place. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally took the Mahaprasad toothpick of Jagannath and planted it in the ground and made a beautiful bakula tree for Haridas to chant under. And Jagannath himself, in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after Lord Chaitanya spent many hours every single morning in the temple, having darshan of Jagannath, offering prayers, having kirtan with his devotees, he would collect the Mahaprasad and go to Haridas Thakur's, that little place where he was staying. And Lord Chaitanya would deliver the prasad to him. And they would speak about Krishna and chant Hare Krishna together so many times. Kaviraj Goswami describes one particular day, Lord Chaitanya's heart was melting with compassion. In his compassion, he was feeling deep pain in his heart. not the kind of pain that people in this world feel. When we feel pain, there's various types of pain. His pain was the pain of pure compassion. Lord Chaitanya revealed his heart to Haridas, that in this Kali Yuga, then in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, so much fighting, so much suffering, so much instability, insecurity, so many ways for people to hurt each other and to be hurt by nature's laws. What can we do to help them? It seems like in Kali Yuga, people are so desperately addicted to materialistic ideas, materialistic attachments. What can we do to help them? For a great devotee of the Lord, suffering is not just when there's physical or emotional pain. But for a great devotee of the Lord, beyond that, there is the pain of being separated from Krishna. Lord Chaitanya asked Haridas, my heart is breaking to see all these people. What can be done to help them? People are so committed to sinful activities and wasteful lifestyles. And Haridas Thakur, he said, my Lord, please be happy. Because you have descended to chant the holy names of the Lord, and by the power of the holy names, anyone, everyone can be delivered. Everyone can awaken their ecstatic love for Krishna within their hearts if they just chant the holy names of the Lord. And you have come to this world as the most merciful incarnation to give this benediction to all. And Haridas glorified the holy names, and his glorification was with such realization, because realization comes when we take shelter. He was taking shelter of Krishna's names and Sri Radha's names. Therefore, he had realizations of the power of the holy names. To the degree each and every one of us truly, genuinely, and consistently take shelter of Krishna's holy names, from that we actually have realization of the purifying, merciful power of Krishna who's appeared in his names. Nam Namakari Bahudanita Sarva Shaktis. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he has told us that Krishna is in his holy name. The name of Krishna is Krishna. And connectivity through taking shelter of Krishna's name, the circuit of Krishna's mercy, as we become connected to Krishna's eternal pastimes, to Krishna's beautiful form, his character, his loving associations with all of his devotees, his very abode of Sri Vrindavan Dham. We can connect and have direct access of experience of all these different aspects of Krishna just by tuning in to the mercy of the holy name, by taking shelter. Haridas had that realization. And he was speaking to Lord Chaitanya from his heart. You have come and you have given the holy name of Krishna to the people of this world. And my Lord, I know the power of your holy name by your mercy. And Lord Chaitanya said, I am very happy you're speaking like this, but my heart breaks to see the insects and the trees and the shrubs and the plants, even the immovable living beings. How will they be delivered? They don't have the type of mouths that can chant the holy names like we do. And Haridas Thakur explained that when the holy names are chanted by you or by those who follow in your footsteps, even the souls with them reverberate the mercy of the holy name, absorb them, and gain great benefits. And Haridas Thakur, like all devotees, loved to glorify other devotees. He said, I was told by Balabhadra Bhattacharya, your devotee, that when you were in the Jarikhanda forest, the tigers and the deers and the elephants and the snakes and the insects and the trees and the creepers, everybody was echoing in ecstasy the love of Krishna. That is your power, my Lord. And your devotee Vasudev Datta, he prayed, let the sins of all living beings fall on my head. Let me suffer hellish conditions perpetually, but give everyone liberation. And because your devotee prayed with such an earnest and honest heart in this way, just to satisfy him, you gave everyone liberation. So in this way, Haridas Thakur, he was feeling the pain of the heart of Lord Chaitanya. And by his own personal sadhana and by his compassionate words and actions, he was reciprocating with the Lord's heart. And Srila Prabhupada explains in this connection that a devotee wants to see Krishna happy. And in this world, the greatest way to make Krishna happy is to help others to love Krishna, because others are suffering and Krishna feels the suffering for everyone. Patita pavana hetu tava abhaktara. The Lord is most merciful, even to the most fallen. And devotees are very much dedicated to giving pleasure to the Lord, giving happiness to the Lord, watering the root of the tree by extending the mercy and blessings of the Lord to the world. Param Vijayatre Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proclaimed while he was living in the Gambhira in Jagannath Puri, during the last 12 years of his pastimes in this world, when he was going the deepest into his ecstasies of Sri Radha's love for Krishna, experiencing those ecstasies of Radha's Mahabhava. During that time, he composed Shikshastakam. And in the very first verse, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. In the mood of Sri Radha's innermost, deepest love for Krishna, he's speaking of his compassion for all living beings, that the greatest benediction for all humanity is that Krishna has descended into his name. And there's no hard and fast rules for chanting these names. And devotees who want to please Krishna, and devotees, as their love for Krishna awakens more and more, become more and more enthusiastic, determined, and grateful for the opportunity to share this benediction with others. When Haridas Thakur left Benapole after he gave ecstatic love of God, Krishna Prema, to this lady who came to harm him and transformed her life. At that time, she was celebrated as a saint by everybody around. And Haridas left. He didn't have any money. He didn't have any transportation facilities. He just wore a loincloth. He didn't have any property or home. All he had was his love for Krishna. He came to a place called Chandpur, where there was two very, very great devotees, Balaramacharya and Yadunandan. And they were the priests and the gurus for two of the wealthiest, most pious landowners in a place called Saptagram, Hiranya and Govardhan, Madhumadar. That's a title for one who is a landholder who collects taxes on behalf of the king. They were so fabulously wealthy, Govardhan and Hiranya, two brothers. They had so much money and so much fame and so much power in that local area. And they were very, very learned in the scriptures and extremely pious. They were Vaishnavas, they were devotees. And they only had, in the whole family, one child in the next generation. His name was Radhanath, later Raghunath Das Goswami. How he became what he is, our Prayojanacharya, is revealed in this beautiful story. When Haridas came there, after being rejected and persecuted with threats to his life and all sorts of slanderous propaganda against him, he came to Chandpur, and devotees recognize great devotees. Balaramacharya, he felt so fortunate that Haridas Thakur was blessing him. Balaramacharya was the priest and the guru for the wealthiest people in the whole vicinity, and he was a very high-level learned Brahmin. But he felt so fortunate and blessed because Haridas Thakur was favorable to him. And he invited Haridas, and he knew that Haridas liked to be in secluded places so he could chant his 300,000 names of Krishna every day. So he made a beautiful little straw hut in a quiet place in Chandpur. And every day Balaramacharya invited Haridas into his home to honor prasad. So in this way, everything was so nice. And Govardhan and Hiranya, the great landowners, like the local kings practically, they would regularly come to get the blessings of Haridas Thakur. And Raghunath, at the time he was a student who was in his studies, he was a small boy. And Balaramacharya and his father and mother brought him to meet Haridas Thakur. And here is little Raghunath. He's just a little boy, and he has everything in the world to look forward to. Wealth, fame, he was healthy, beautiful, elegance in everything. But in seeing Haridas Thakur, in that association, he saw in this simple person who was ridiculed as an outcast, who had no money, no wealth, no fine clothes. He wanted what Haridas had. He saw that Haridas had love for Krishna. He saw that Haridas had no false ego. He was everybody's well-wisher. He wanted that. That was the wealth that he aspired for. Every single day, spontaneously, Radhanath came to spend time with Haridas Thakur. And his heart, his mind, his life was completely transformed. In Haridas Thakur, the seed of ecstatic love for Krishna was sprouting and growing in the heart of Raghunath Das. And we find even when he was very young, he was always, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after taking sannyas, came to Shantipur, to the house of Advaita Prabhu. And there, Hiranya and Govardhan came because they were great supporters of Advaitacharya. They were great supporters of the whole Vaishnav community. They came to meet Lord Chaitanya, and there Raghunath Das Goswami completely surrendered his life, his body, his mind, his words, his soul to Lord Chaitanya's service. That was the effect of Haridas Thakur. So at this particular time while Haridas was there, Govardhan and Hiranya were holding satsangs every evening where there were learned pundits, Brahmins, scholars, and the most respectable people of the town. They were coming to discuss spiritual subject matters. And Balaramacharya wanted to bring Haridas Thakur there. And when he brought Haridas Thakur into that assembly, Govardhan and Hiranya, immediately knowing the greatness of Haridas Thakur, they stood up in front of everybody and they offered their dandavats. They fell on the floor, prostrated, to honor and give respect to Thakur Haridas. And at that time, so many of the people there were extolling the greatness of Haridas Thakur. And especially they were describing how every day he chants at least 300,000 names. That's approximately 192 rounds. And he still has so much time to uplift other people in every way. How is it even possible? It's very difficult to understand the mind of a great devotee. Haridas Thakur was being glorified for his chanting of the holy names of the Lord. And then the people of that assembly, and they were very proficient at quoting scriptures, they started to glorify the names of God. One said, simply by chanting the holy names of the one supreme source of all that exists, the one supreme God, Lord Hari, one could be completely cleansed of all one's sinful reactions. And another person glorified the holy name. Simply by chanting the holy name sincerely, one can attain liberation, salvation, mukti, freedom from suffering forever. And hearing this, Haridas Thakur, he intervened. He said, actually, whatever you're speaking, that is not the real goal of chanting the names of God. The real goal is to awaken from our hearts our original ecstatic love for Krishna. In that ecstatic love, eradication of sins and even liberation are byproducts. They're automatically achieved. And he quoted from scripture how when the sun rises, all darkness is dispelled. And he explained how even before the sun actually rises, there's light. And in that light, all darkness is dispelled. And he said, simply by a glimpse of a fenceless chanting of the holy names of the Lord, one eradicates all one's sins and one becomes liberated. But when the sun actually personally appears, then the full realization of the sun is realized. And similarly, when one offenselessly chants, when actually one chants taking full shelter of the Lord, then love for Krishna awakens within the heart. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoy Ravanadi Sudecheti Koriye Udoy. That love for Krishna is within the heart of every living being. By associating with devotees, by hearing about the Lord, and by chanting the names of the Lord, one becomes purified, and that love is awakened. Prema Pumartha Mahan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained that the greatest of all the goals of life is to awaken love for Krishna. Purushartha Shiromani. In the great scriptures of the world, including the Vedas, Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna, there are so many goals that are promised that will bring us happiness. People want healthy lives, long lives. People want elevation to higher realms of enjoyment. People want better economic situations. People want greater levels of pleasure and enjoyment for themselves, for their family members. Some people want yogic powers, and others want liberation. But Lord Chaitanya taught, Nadanam na janam na sundarim kavitam vaja gadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishwari bhavatad bhakti rohita kitvayi. I do not want wealth. I do not want fame, popularity. I do not want physical and emotional enjoyment, pleasure. I do not want scholarship and great knowledge. I don't want mystical powers. I don't even want liberation. I only want to serve you, my Lord. That will to serve is the actual intent of love. Bhakti literally means ecstatic love for Krishna. Srimati Radharani is Bhakti Devi. She is the personification of Bhakti. She is Bhakti. It's like the sun, like this, all Bhakti is emanating from her love for Krishna. So Bhakti is ecstatic love. Prema is the full realization of Bhakti. And Srila Prabhupada, he translated Bhakti as devotional service. Some scholars of Sanskrit, they translate Bhakti as devotion, which is true. But the practical expression and the means to achieve that devotion, Srila Prabhupada explained, is seva, is service, devotional service. To serve. In the spiritual world of Goloka, everyone is the servant of the servant of the servant. Everyone is serving one another. Everyone is trying to bring each other closer and closer to Krishna, because they know that that's what makes Krishna happy. Within our movement, Srila Prabhupada said, you can show your love for me by how you cooperate with one another for this mission. by how we cooperate to bring out the good in each other, by how we cooperate to unite each other for the common purpose of spreading love of God in this world. If we can't share love of God among each other, we really have very little to share with the world. So Srila Prabhupada telling us you can show your love for me by how you cooperate means to really be the servant of the servant, the well-wisher of each other, because that's the way it is in the spiritual world in its purest state, is everyone simply wants everyone else to be happy with Krishna because everyone knows that's what makes Krishna happy. And Srila Prabhupada describes Srimati Radharani, who is the very source of all prema, of all love. She's such a well-wisher of everyone. If someone calls out her name in the mood of the servant of her servants, with tears of love and compassion in her eyes, she'll bring that person to Krishna. And speaking with all sincerity and honesty of her supreme heart, she will say, Krishna, please accept this person. She or he is better than me. That's Srimati Radharani. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that was his mood. He was the servant of every devotee. He would do the most menial activities to serve his devotees. In fact, when he gave the holy name of Krishna to the people of Navadvip, he was such a well-wisher of those people that when he would see that people would be taking shelter of the holy names, Lord Chaitanya would bow down to those people. He would personally embrace those people. He would offer garlands, sandalwood, and would thank them for chanting the holy names. So who would not want to take shelter of the holy name if you know, if I just do that, Lord Chaitanya will come and embrace me personally and put garlands on me and cry in appreciation for me. That's what it was like living in Navadvip in those days. And yet some people who were very proud of their high learning and their prestige, they were envious of Lord Chaitanya to see him having such an effect on people. Lord Chaitanya wasn't taking anything from anyone. He was just giving and giving. He was the humble servant of everyone. Why? Radha Bhavaduti Suvalitam Naomi Krishna Swarupam, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of Radha, Srimati Radharani. That is her mood, to just want to bring everyone to Krishna, to be so grateful for anyone's effort to please Krishna, to give all blessings, to give herself. And when Sri Radharani gives herself to someone, Krishna gives himself to that person. Jai Shri Radhe. That is Gaudiya Vaishnav conclusion. So Haridas Thakur, he was explaining to the people at this beautiful assembly in Chandpur that liberation, mystic powers, eradication of sins, they come automatically as a byproduct of chanting the holy names. And when one actually takes shelter of the holy names and chants offenselessly, then that love is awakened. When he said this, everyone was so happy, except one person. This person was very proud. He was so talented. Queen Kunti, she prayed that high birth, wealth, high level of education and knowledge, physical beauty, these four things people of this world are glorifying, they're attracted to and they want to have so that they can attract others. But in this spiritual sense, having these material opulences can make one proud. And in that false pride, one becomes subjected to envy, to arrogance, and one cannot take shelter of the holy names. Akinchana gocharam. One who is free of pride, Krishna becomes their property. False pride, egoistic. So this Gopal Chakravarti, he was very, very handsome. He was young, in great health. He had beautiful bodily features. He was extremely wealthy. He was very, very learned in the scriptures. He was born in a very highly respected Brahmin family. He was the chief tax collector under Govardhan and Hiranya. They were the landowners, but he was the chief person under them who would collect the taxes. 1,200,000 coins he would regularly collect, and he got a tremendous commission. So he had everything, but he was proud. And he was outraged at the words of Haridas Thakur because he had an impersonal conception of the absolute truth. And Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Sabjate, the absolute truth is the all-pervading impersonal Brahman, the Paramatma, that's the Lord seated in everyone's heart, and Bhagavan, the supreme personality of Godhead. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. The Lord whose beautiful form and personality is eternal, full of knowledge and full of ananda, full of ecstasy, full of bliss, full of happiness. And in fact, that form is the source of all happiness, the source of all eternity, and the source of all knowledge. One who understands Brahman as an aspect of Bhagavan is understanding Brahman in its fullness. But Gopal Chakravarti, he could not tolerate what Haridas was saying. He loudly chastised Haridas. He said, people spend birth after birth after birth performing austerities, cultivating knowledge, just so that they can achieve mukti, liberation. And even after so many births of so much sacrifice and cultivation of knowledge, most people can't even get liberation. And you're saying it's an insignificant byproduct of chanting Krishna's names? This is blasphemy. Haridas Thakur was so humble. He, with a very concerned smile, he said, I'm just saying what's in the scriptures. And he quoted a verse from the scripture to confirm it. And that even made Gopal Chakravarti more angry that this ignorant, sentimental person is misrepresenting the scriptures in this way. He is so dangerous. And then in front of everybody, like thunder, he called out, if what you are saying is not true, if one cannot get liberation simply by a mere glimpse of chanting the holy names, then I will personally cut off your nose. He was not a small person speaking. He was a very, very powerful, very learned, very famous person in that area. When he said, people's hearts were shattered. And Haridas Thakur, with such humility, almost apologetically, he spoke the truth. When I say apologetically, what I mean is he spoke the truth without in any way retaliating against this person's attack on him. He was just speaking the truth. He said, if by a mere glimpse of offenseless chanting of the names of Hari, if one doesn't get liberated, I will cut off my own nose. At that point, there was an uproar, and Balaram Acharya started chastising Gopal Chakravarti, and Govardhan and Hiranya, who were his bosses, they employed him. They fired him. They took away everything. And still, Gopal Chakravarti, he was so arrogant that he wouldn't change his mind. And eventually Haridas Thakur saw everything that was happening, and he didn't want to see all this fighting, and he didn't want to see all this anger. So he just got up to leave. And at that time, Govardhan and Hiranya and Balaramacharya and so many others came to Haridas, and they were bowing down, and they were weeping in shame that we invited you here to honor you and you respect you, and you were publicly blasphemed. And they were begging forgiveness. And Haridas smiled. He said, please, you are not at fault. He said, in fact, even Gopal Chakravarti, he's not at fault because, he's an impersonal speculator and he hasn't understood the mercy of Krishna. Unless one is touched by the mercy of Krishna, one cannot really understand what is true bhakti, what is true love of God, and what is the power of the holy names. So he's not at fault, he's just ignorant. So please be happy, I'm happy. And in this way, Haridas went back to his kutir. And very soon after that, Gopal Chakravarti, he got leprosy. And one of the symptoms of leprosy is his own nose got cut off. And his fingers, which Kaviraj Goswami describes, his fingers were beautiful like golden champak flowers. They melted away. But still, he was so stubborn. But we know for sure, eventually by Haridas Thakur's prayers, he was delivered. Haridas Thakur was completely forgiving. But Krishna himself, he takes action in due course of time to those who are harsh to the devotees who give their lives in his loving service. Krishna tells that in the form of Lord Chaitanya, he said, one devotee who gives his heart in my loving service, like Haridas Thakur, is more precious to me than everything and everyone within the entire universal existence. And that's not a quantitative statement. That's a qualitative statement. When Lord Chaitanya said, one devotee who surrenders his heart in my loving service, who's free of envy, is more dear to me than everything and everyone in existence. Krishna can feel that way to hundreds of millions of people simultaneously. When Krishna was in Rasa Lila, every gopi was thinking, Krishna's just with me. And with every gopi, Krishna's, I'm only with you. And when Lord Chaitanya would dance in Kirtan in Jagannath Puri, he was dancing in all the groups. And he was really, in his heart, I am yours completely. That is the nature of Krishna's love. Krishna can give his full self in his love for each devotee simultaneously. And that love is ever increasing. And that's the spiritual world. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was glorifying Haridas Thakur, and Haridas Thakur, his life and soul was to glorify the holy name of Krishna, because that was the gift that Lord Chaitanya has given us. From Chandpur, Thakur Haridas went to Shantipur, and there he met Sri Adwaita. Sri Adwaita was the leader of all the Vaishnavas and the leader of the whole Brahmin community. And when he met Haridas, he worshipped and respected and loved Haridas, and Haridas loved and worshipped and respected Adwaita, and their mutual love was so reciprocal and so pure. And it's the perfection of relationship is when devotees love each other with Krishna in the center. And Adwaita Prabhu arranged a beautiful little hut on the banks of the Ganges River. He arranged also a little cave for Haridas Thakur in a place called Fuliagram. And Advaitacharya at that time, seeing the people of Kali Yuga, was feeling so much compassion for you and for me and for everyone in the past, in the present, and in the future. He was Sadashiva, the original Shiva, who was willing to drink poison to show compassion to all beings in this universe. He's Mahavishnu, the father of everyone. Advaitacharya was crying out the names of the Lord and offering tulsi leaves and Ganges water, praying for Krishna to appear, to give his mercy to us. And Haridas Thakur was doing exactly the same thing. He was loudly chanting Krishna's name day and night, praying for Krishna to appear. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita tells that the combination of the two of them together attracted Krishna to appear as Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because Advaitacharya and Haridas Thakur were praying for the Lord to be mercy to the most fallen people of Kali Yuga, how did the Lord appear? Namo Mahabharanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Tveshe Namaha. In the most munificent, the most merciful, the most magnanimous, the most compassionate of all incarnations, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Paramakaruna Pahundu Ijana Nitai Gaura Chandra. Tava Avatara Sara Siromani Kevalananda Kanda. They are the essence of all incarnations because they are supremely kind. And when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, in fact, he came to New York and established in a little storefront on 2nd Avenue, he established his society of ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And the next place he went, the first time he ever took an airplane in all of his pastimes of life, he flew to San Francisco. And there he established, along with his few devotees, a little storefront. And from there, he traveled around the world about 12 times, giving this message. In fact, Srila Prabhupada named San Francisco New Jagannath Puri because San Francisco was the first place outside of India in the history of the world that a Jagannath Ratha Yatra ever took place. So special, so dear. And all of you are living in that vicinity, and under the care of two of the most compassionate, learned, empowered devotees in the world, by Sheshika Prabhu and Nirakula Devi. And they, like your spiritual father, mother, older brother, older sister, caretakers, are there for all of you. And by their example, by their teachings, by extending themselves in every way, nourishing you in Krishna consciousness. You are so fortunate. And how to please them, how to please our gurus, is to do what's best for us, which is to avoid offenses, to live a life of character, to live a life of humility, of gratitude, to fill our intelligence to our capacity with the knowledge we've been given, and to cherish the opportunity to serve. And through this lifestyle, we're actually in a state of mind where we can truly take shelter of Krishna's holy names and attain Krishna's highest perfection. Srila Prabhupada was so concerned, like Advaita Acharya, like Haridas Thakur, like Nityananda and Mahaprabhu, so concerned with giving Krishna. And it's that spirit that Srila Prabhupada urged us to read his books and to distribute his books, to chant the holy names and distribute the holy names, and to establish temples and centers for the purpose of giving people to the opportunity to associate with devotees. Our centers are opportunities where devotees could learn how to associate with one another, with Krishna in the center. And in that association, to give a chance for the whole world to come and associate with devotees. And at this particular time, it's a very turbulent time in our history. I'm not going to speak too much about this subject, but literally every day I'm receiving news of people I love so dearly who are dying, or who are very ill, or who are losing loved ones. It's a very vulnerable time. What can I say? Between cancer and heart disease and now the COVID-19, it really gives us a glimpse into the reality of the world. And where you are in California, there are these fires in the forests. Just about a week ago, our beloved godbrother and esteemed Vaishnav Shamsundar Prabhu, he was happily writing the third volume of his book, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, in a forested little village in Oregon. And one day he called me and said, there's 2 valleys and 2 ridges down, there's a fire burning. And the next, he left that day. And the next day, the place he was staying completely burned down. And all the homes and all the houses burned down so fast, within a day. He was miles away. It's unprecedented. The climate change, the fires, the droughts, the hurricanes, typhoons. It's really a very, very turbulent time. This disease is claiming so many lives, and it's happening all over the world. At the same time, politically, it seems like since the Civil War, America was never so divided politically. When we read the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we can appreciate how Vyasadeva, the author, he was predicting all these things happening. It's the climate of the age of Kali. Kamala Dala Jala Jivanatalamala. Everything in this world is like that drop of water on a lotus leaf. At any moment, it could just be gone. Bhajahun Hari Padani today. Where there's much given, there's much expected. And when there's the greatest need, there's the greatest opportunity to serve. These are words of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So many of us are in lockdown. If not for this situation, we would be together in Mountain View, chanting and dancing in a crowded temple room in the presence of Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan. But now, we're thousands of miles away from each other, seeing little tiny squares with your wonderful forms on it. And by Krishna's grace, I get to be in each and every one of your homes right now through this connected technology. But we have to see how this situation is an opportunity to grow. We should never get depressed. We should never get discouraged, because in every situation, there's an opportunity to deeper take shelter of Krishna and to devise creative ways by which we could connect with each other and help uplift the world. And there in Silicon Valley, Sacramento, San Francisco, where many of you are, San Jose, Mountain View, the whole world of devotees is so enlivened by what all of you are doing. How in this situation where you could easily consider yourselves hopeless, you're actually really striving to increase book distribution, increase the congregation, increase preaching. And I see all over the world that's happening. And most especially it's happening through each and every one of you. I thank you. You are all such an inspiration to me. And with my heart, I thank you. And I am so grateful that you have invited me into this wonderful assembly so that I can try to serve you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, that was so ecstatic, beautiful.